One of the biggest questions that some fans have in the Frieren Foundation Festival arc is, who exactly is Lineal, this undercover empire mage for over 15 years from the Continental Magic Association that is stronger than learning? Neil! Who is she undercover as? Have we already seen her? Will we see her? Will she save Serie? Or will she contribute to getting her master yeeted? Well, it's plenty clear to me that she's indeed. It's another week of the Frieren hiatus in the books. Yamada Kanehito and Abe Tsukasa are 1 week closer to getting healthier. But what's not healthy is deciding what to do with the living grimoire's life. And so she presents yet another script to the great mage Serie, the goddess of feet. With the flower petal in hand, infinitely pondering over what Flamme did to the world, the script says, at least season 2 of Frieren looks infinitely better than One Punch Man season 3. It's clear after chapter 147 that Commander Louv, aka Helt, and Lyra are inspired by Himo the Hero's legacy. What happens over time is the warping of the legacy and ideals. Whatever Himo the Hero intended and left behind for the world in terms of stories, accomplishments, and statues, it morphs. That is where Captain Frase's position in the story becomes much more obvious. She is the other side of the coin of the Himo the Hero legacy. She is Flamme's warped ideals of spreading magic across the globe, ambitiously saying that until the day that every single person in this world can use magic. This is why on each side of Frieren, Commander Reve and Captain Frase are so central to this arc, because it all ends up tying back to our MC, who personally knew both Flamme and Himo the Hero, along with every intention they had left behind for the world. Both Himo and Flamme knew that once they are gone, Father Time always wins. Everyone eventually gets forgotten, and what people do with that knowledge of the past and the direction of the world is always in the hands of the new generation. We can only teach and resist, doing our best, passing down that knowledge to the new age, and resisting making the same mistakes of the old. However, for this video, I wanted to focus on the Frase side, because what her motives are in terms of fighting the great mage Serie, the feet goddess. Her latest prophetic dream leads to fighting Frase for whatever reason, and that reason was only the time to speak with the Emperor before Serie eventually yeeted her. Once we knew about Serie's prophetic dream in chapter 144 and 145, looking back at 142, at this point, the Emperor already had that specific prophetic dream with Serie, with the potential of the real Frase overhearing due to the magical barrier Delio placed on him for these kinds of scenarios to combat these powerful Series of the world with the power to invade the mind. At this point, the Emperor was already fishing to grasp what Frase's true intentions were. Honestly, if Serie can somehow avoid fighting Frase, and if Frase can somehow help them fight against the Shadow Warriors, that would feel like an easy win for the Continental Magic Association if they were able to get the Magic Special Forces on their side. But of course, it's not going to be that easy to sniff out Frase's true intentions of what she wants to get through this whole ordeal. It's also highly likely that Captain Frase doesn't know who the Shadow Warriors actually are, but Lineal does. And soon I will be talking about Lineal and Kanone. What we do know, at least, is that Captain Frase is not a Southern Lander, who we can assume will be the culprit that has this clairvoyant ability that consistently leads Serie to her eventual death. So let's get to know who Captain Frase is, given everything the story has hinted thus far, and how this relationship with Vice Captain Kanone, aka Lineal of the Continental Magic Association, how much they can help turn this entire plot and its different messages on its head. Yes, I believe Kanone is Lineal and Lineal is Kanone. Before we take a look at this Captain Frase and Kanone dynamic and the implications of their upcoming decisions that can lead to Serie getting yeeted on the rooftop where Commander Reve and Lyra are right now, or they can help contribute to what all fans want, and that is help save Ashi no Megami. Let's take a look at everything we know about Lineal and where all the hints start stacking up that Kanone is indeed Lineal. She was first introduced in chapter 126 when Sense, or Zinza, went beyond Serie's expectations and imagination by recruiting Frieren's entire party to help save the person that banned her from seeing her for centuries. I'm with Frieren if I was in her position. I would be salty and I'm just trying to mind my own business. However, back to the main point here. Besides Sense, Serie brought along specifically all the first class mages that went beyond her expectation and imagination. This is a major Frieren motif that early on, even Frieren mentions that Fern went beyond Frieren's own expectations and told Serie herself that she will surpass hers. Those characters include Sense, Faust, Ubel, Megane, and this new character in Lineal, who has been undercover in the Empire for over 15 years. There is Fern, and by default her entire party that will later include Gold Tea Priests. Side tangent here, I love the fact that Sense went out of her way to recruit Frieren. That's such a great humble quality to have, to go ask people for help when you really do need as much help as possible. She even talks to Dinkin about this assassination plot against Serie. This forces Dinkin now to have that on top of his brain that hey, even though he came up with this peace treaty between the Continental Magic Association and the Empire, something else might be going down. Right now, we know for a 100% fact that Serie believes that she will get yeeted. So asking Frieren for her help isn't in her personality to do so, which makes for great character development if Serie does survive. So since going out of her way to recruit as many people as possible to help her, that is something going beyond her expectation. It was in chapter 127 what Ubel and Megane sent on the mission to retrieve every detail possible about the Shadow Warriors, minus the info about their commander. All this information and warning about Serie potentially being assassinated was Lineal's intel. So Ubel and Land dress up to appear at a party by a chief retainer from the Empire and go to a random storage room to retrieve that special letter from Lineal. When Ubel talks about meeting Lineal for the first time, Kanehito and Tsukasa Abe just straight up shows us 2 panels of what she looks like from the back and the front. She has long black hair, and from the front, she looks like a girl that gets to just enjoy being a girl. Until it wasn't 2 freaks getting busy, it was only 1. This is where we get introduced to Kanone, the vice captain of the Magic Special Forces, and her partner Inoi. They catch Ubel and Land slipping. Later on, we learn from Sense and we can tell by Megane's surprise that there shouldn't have been any Magic Special Forces at this event on guard duty. Sense said that Lineal never put this in her report in retrieval of that letter. So how, in all the coinkydink, Ubel and Megane run into 2 of the strongest Magic Special Forces? You guys know my answer. It's Lineal! She has long black hair, her facial features look like Kanone, which matches the same panels that we just saw earlier in this same chapter. The reason why Linear, aka Kanone, would want to guard here is to obviously make sure the Continental Magic Association actually recover the letter and no one else. What made Kanone and Noi bust into the room is because Ubel and Megane could have been someone else, not Continental Magic Association related, because of Land dropping that school badge of the Imperial Magic Academy. This is where the first biggest hint from Kanone herself that she is Lineal occurs. She sends Noi to go track them down while Kanone investigates. She says they are not done at all, likely referring to Ubel and Megane retrieving that important letter and escaping. Another reason why Lineal would want to guard the letter is also what would happen next. Ubel and Megane fight Noi. We learn later on that Sense has already fought against the militaristic Magic Special Forces at least one time before, and so she has experience in being able to combat them, or at least survive. Now Ubel and Land will get first-hand experience of how powerful Noi is, disabling her Sorganel and what mysterious powers he will use that blinds Ubel and disables her mana detection. This is something she speculates over how it works in chapter 131. We know that specific detail of hearing buzzing of winged insects. Frieren makes Fern ask specifically about that to Ubel's experience later on because they will have to eventually counter this ability. And if you guys seen my hidden knowledge video before, this is part of Frieren knowing a lot more than what she is letting on. In my opinion, this is all Lineal as Kanone, giving Ubel and Land fighting experience and at the same time giving them both the intel from the letter and what the magic special forces are capable of, given what we saw from Noi's abilities. In chapter 127, it was already mentioned that Lineal's status within the Empire would be pretty high because she was able to access the information about the Shadow Warriors, and in chapter 129, this is where Sent explains why the magic special forces shouldn't have been there in the first place and wanted to bail out Ubel and Megane out of the jail herself. Falsh reinforces Lineal's position in the Empire, her high position, that she will take matters in her own hands. Lineal should be able to privately, keyword privately, which will kind of come up later. If Lineal is this powerful and high status to finesse her way to getting Land and Ubel out, then it just becomes more evidence that Kanone is Lineal. Sent continues to diss Lineal for probably just trying to save her own skin and that they tend to beef a lot every time they meet. It's quite possible that they might have to face off against each other post chapter 147. After Kanone speaks with Gluck and while speaking with Denkin, Noi tells her that Ubel and Megane have been captured. Note Kanone's reaction. This is something very urgent to Kanone and her reaction of this being a meaningful event that can only feel this important if she is indeed Lineal. There is also a strong possibility that Denkin knows that Kanone is Lineal. This is something I will address later on. In chapter 131, Kanone and Noi talk about what Noi just did in capturing Ubel and Land, destroying an area around the old Imperial Square that was scheduled to be demolished anyways. I mean, this dude literally dropped a building on top of Land. What's important to take away from this conversation and how it just mounts up to more evidence that Kanone is Lineal is that she points out that Noi did something out of her expectation by going on this rampage instead of just waiting for her before the confrontation. However, Noi points out that this green-haired maniac is a big threat with sensibilities, just like Captain Fraser. In my perspective, this is Lineal thinking that Ubel and Land would get away with that secret letter, and now she has to find a way to allow them to escape without screwing herself over. So once Kanone and Noi get there, Noi realizes he messes up because this dude right here is a clone. He goes off to find out where Land might have gone. This is where the dialogue gets really interesting and carefully crafted by Kanone. She carefully explains what Ubel and Land are doing wrong and trying to fight her by saying that even if I did allow you to escape, I'd have to tell the higher ups that I fought with every ounce of my strength. If I get taken hostage and you get away, I'll be charged with dereliction of duty and marked for elimination. So in this exact situation, she has no choice but to fight Ubel and Land to the death. This is the kind of situation that Falsh earlier might have hinted to, that Lineal will just find a way to get Ubel and Land off. I believe right when Kanone tells the two to avoid complicating things for the both of them and for her to drop her spear. And then, if you believe Kanone is Lineal, she was clearly going to find a peaceful way to resolve matters with Ubel and Megane. But we all know Ubel is a maniac! That she attacked right away and solved the matter by using real Sidon. We are all Kanone right here. What are you doing? Although Ubel is a crazy red flag, she still gave Kanone an outlet where she won't be charged with dereliction of duty by safely lowering the rubble so it doesn't end up yeeting the NPCs below. Another fun factor at play here is Ubel mentioned earlier in this chapter that she still couldn't see. Her eyes technically work, but is still being blocked by Noi's magic. And we know that Lineal and Ubel have met once before. So if Ubel could physically see her, she might not have reacted all crazy. But in the end, it still worked out. So in Kanone's case, she's seen Ubel before as well. So her reaction of attacking her might have come as a surprise when she was clearly trying to talk out a way for them to escape peacefully, while letting herself off the hook. Once Ubel and Megane fly off to escape, look at what Kanone tells Weg, and for him to tell Noi. She essentially commands them to let them go, and let them divulge all the information that they want. So at this point, even if you just decided that everything Kanone has done is all coincidence, it's still clear that how physically she looks, what she says, and how carefully she words things, and her actions, it all aligns with what Lineal would do if she was working for the Continental Magic Association. By the time it is chapter 137, Noi, Kanone, and Weg notice the end of the fight between Fern and Lore. Kanone once again uses the excuse of stopping Noi from interfering because of his rampage on Ubel and Land. This is where Weg and Kanone end up questioning what Captain Frase's true intentions are. This is where it starts to blur the lines between how much Captain Frase knows and actually testing Kanone in some way about what she knows and vice versa. Weg mentions that they shouldn't be the ones maintaining public order, working as bodyguards for the nobility, and doing boring paperwork, since mentioned earlier that Lineal told her that they are usually working as border security instead. So between Captain Frase and Kanone, it seems like they are making decisions that have been a little bit more abnormal than usual. Once chapter 138 hits, one of the most dramatic moments in this arc is when everyone gathers around to discuss Lineal's report about the Shadow Warriors, and eventually they come to the conclusion that the Shadow Warriors are almost like traitors. And we see the panel switch to Kanone speaking with Weg as Noi is standing there, because we all know Lineal would be considered a traitor too. Besides Lineal's status of being really high up to even retrieve such highly classified information, Sense explains that she doesn't know anyone more skilled in a human versus human fight. Serie once kneeled before Lineal in a mock battle. So it seems like Lineal has some tide turning abilities to be able to save Serie along with her high status in the Empire. So if Lineal is Kanone, it all adds up perfectly. Turning back to Captain Frase, let's discuss how she's referred to as, what schemes she could be cooking up, and how it affects Kanone as being Lineal as well. In chapter 130, Kanone spoke with Gluck about Gluck's punishment from the City of Weiss incident involving Mox Diagodes. Given how much he wants all of his evil deeds to be punished, no one seems to be giving him that atonement that he seeks, and then the topic turns to Frase. Mock early on strongly requested that Gluck send him to finish her off, but Gluck said it himself that he took the longer route to find out her true intentions, and even said that she was incredibly troublesome and a difficult villain to deal with. This conversation between Gluck and Kanone, with the Land's backstory of Frase, paints her as a villain. By chapter 147, we get the idea that Commander Reve is the radical warp legacy of Himo the Heroes, and looking back, it starts to become clear that Frase is like the radical warp version of Flamme's legacy of providing magic to the world. There's actually an argument here that Frase and Kanone could actually be looking to achieve the same thing. On the other hand, Kanone has mentioned multiple times how unpredictable Frase is and wants to figure out her schemes before it becomes a hellish battlefield. Also, there's the fact that Frase seemed to give Kanone a special secret mission. This special super secret mission is something even Dinkin is wondering about. Maybe Dinkin hasn't completely put the pieces together just yet, which could lead him back to the main story as he dropped Gluck off in the City of Weiss, linking back up with Learning at the same time. Dinkin says it himself that he'll just continue laying the groundwork and hopefully he can return home soon. There is clearly a pathway for Dinkin to come back into the fold to somehow affect if Serie ends up living or not. Luke even mentions that Kanone has been dragged into the schemes of that sly vixen. So it's been a constant theme now that Captain Frase is constantly holding out on what her true intentions are, no matter what the situation is. And that continues. There's also this extra layer of mystery between Kanone and Dinkin. If Dinkin is aware of Kanone as Lineal, this conversation between them means way more than we think. This special mission could be referring to whatever Captain Frase has ready for Kanone. But if Dinkin knows of Kanone's true identity, he could also be asking about the Continental Magic Association's super secret mission, carefully saying, "Beyond my authority," before Noi cut them off. In chapter 139, we actually get to see Captain Frase and see her speaking with Kanone. There's a lot of, "I know you might know, I know that you might know. I don't know for sure what you're up to, but I have an idea." This conversation pretty much sums up the questions we have for the both of them. Captain Frase is waiting for something to happen before she takes action. However, if you are already aware of Kanone being lineal, what she says here confirms more about her intentions to save Serie. She specifically asked Frase about engaging with the Shadow Warriors, trying to get confirmation about something, in which Frase essentially says that it is okay to yeet them if it is on the behalf of the Empire. Kanone echoes the sentiment of imperial punishment. Remember that Kanone already knows all the Shadow Warriors besides Commander Lo. It would be easy for her to manipulate the commands of the Magic Special Forces to find ways to apprehend all the Shadow Warriors without herself getting caught as lineal. This is the start of the dynamic that Kanone wants to capture the Shadow Warriors, all the while Frase is standing there being like, "Let's just wait." We don't really know how much Captain Frase knows, especially if she has intel about Serie's prophetic dreams with the Emperor, or even prior ones. She even tells Kanone that she hopes she makes the right choice. That can imply many things. The end of this conversation becomes Frase's first time mentioning that her intentions are for the eternal prosperity of magic in the Empire. This is what sparks my warped radical Flamme legacy thesis that Frase is operating from. That is the other side of the coin of Commander Louv's warped radical Human the Hero legacy thesis I have for this character. In chapter 141, it is the day of the final Symbol of Peace ball that has already started, that should end with Serie getting yeeted. It continues this interesting dynamic between Kanone and Captain Frase. Frase had Kanone retrieve every detail possible about the Shadow Warriors, but all the information has already been scrubbed because Lineal already stole it. I think it's fair to say that Captain Frase has been at least somewhat suspicious of Kanone. There are various moments between them where Frase reacts in a way where she's holding back what she truly thinks, with her true motives still being hidden as well. If Frase knows that Kanone is lineal, then it could make more sense that she sees Serie as a threat to the Empire, making it way more logical why Frase and Serie end up fighting. You have an undercover agent in the Empire. We can see that Kanone is consistently fishing Frase for the opportunity to step into the ballroom and stop the Shadow Warriors. Kanone specifically tells Captain Frase that they are in position to respond immediately. Immediately? Kanone clearly wants Frase to give those orders to engage, but Frase continues to put her on standby. This is where chapter 142 expounds upon what I talked about earlier in the video. Frase has a secret motive and intentions to do something, and that she wants to promote magic to the world. That is the one confirmed motive that we know about her. By the end of the chapter, and then chapter 143, Kanone is all set and ready for Frase to give her the orders to capture the Shadow Warriors, but Frase is still insistent on just monitoring the situation. This is the kind of push and pull happening in their dynamic. You have to put yourself in the shoes of Captain Frase. Kanone is saying that they have no info on the Shadow Warriors, yet is ready to take swift action. I think we would all have a natural suspicion with your subordinate here, and continue to further fuel speculation over why a falling out may take place between Frase and Kanone, and how that leads to Frase fighting Serie. As of chapter 147, that is where Captain Frase and Vice Captain Kanone are currently at. That right there is a simple summary of the characters' position right now and their perspective. We've really only been looking at the angle of what this arc would mean for Serie and Frieren's party, but haven't really dove into the implications of what it means specifically for Lineal if she gets outed as a first class mage. Remember when Routine and Iris was surprised at how fast Ubel and Meganet reacted when Routine popped open the door to double check. They wanted to beat it out of them. How they got this information that they were Shadow Warriors. So this only sets up the potential that Kanone will be exposed as Lineal. Just when Falsh almost got caught by Iris and Routine in the United Empire escape tunnel, Falsh eventually went one arm. I believe that the story has already been foreshadowing a similar outcome for Lineal's character. This is also the possibility that while Serie and the Emperor exchange information, Kanone's real identity gets revealed as well. This could be part of Serie's plan to help save as many casualties as possible, but at the same time, it would make for a huge gamble because Kanone would obviously turn into an enemy of the Empire. But we can assume if this route took place, that Serie would help guarantee Lineal's safety. One more thing before I end this video, one of the reasons why I don't believe that Falsh, Sense, or Lineal would betray Serie like many fan theories may suggest, besides any chance that they are an undercover demon like a Grossum, is that they do go beyond Serie's expectations and imagination. One of the big symbols that tie in Flamme and Frieren's perspective when it comes to magic is the flower, the Field of Flowers spell. It is one that the story always makes us see Serie contemplating over the flower because it's the symbol of Flamme's way of bringing something magical and beautiful to the world. While the gatekeeper of magic, like Serie, has to ponder if this is the right thing to do, but the world is in a much better place when one can create a field of flowers because it's the ultimate Rizzer, just ask young Himo the hero. With Lineal just having a whimsical time in the garden with flowers and butterflies, this becomes pretty symbolic that Kanone aligns not only beyond the expectations and imagination of Serie's, but aligns with Flamme and Frieren's version of what magic can do for the world. All in all, if you guys go back and read when Lineal was first introduced and pay attention to everything Kanone has done, it's pretty clear to me that Lineal is Kanone. All of her actions, everything she carefully says, it all aligns with a person that's trying to save Serie's life. Narratively, it never makes sense to me to introduce a character that we never actually get to build a rapport with. To me, that is poor storytelling. So it makes sense that the character has been in front of our face the entire time, and that is Kanone. In between Frase and Kanone's secret mission, what actions that they are going to take as the Shadow Warriors are now facing off against the Continental Magic Association, what they do next will surely contribute heavily to what Serie's fate will be. So yeah guys, let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.